I'm really excited about AI, as I think you can tell, but I'm also very fearful of it. And my fear isn't really with having to do with my business. It has more to do with I'm just concerned that the internet is being quickly filled up with machine generated garbage. It's not real. It's not even real people talking to each other. It's bots talking to bots. And then you've got this sort of AI generated content that is learning off of humans.
Are we losing touch with true creativity with AI, or is it enabling us to go deeper? What are your thoughts?
Welcome to the podcast, where we introduce you to incredible humans who share their journeys with the mission to inspire you to harness your own inner tenacity to drive your life and career forward. And now, your host, Adam Posner.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast, where I bring in the best and the brightest in the world in the business, marketing, and personal growth to help you harness your inner tenacity and drive your career forward. Folks, my guest today on the podcast is Tom Conlin. Tom is a founder of the award-winning independent creative service agency North Street, with offices in New York City and Providence, Rhode Island. As company lead, he oversees interdisciplinary team of visual designers, strategists, and content creators and engineers on work that spans financial service, nonprofit, B2B, and customer sectors. The dude is a creator. He's a designer. He's a team leader. We have a lot to get into. We're going to unpack his past and his journey into the world of advertising. What's next? Let's get to it. Tom, welcome to the podcast.
Awesome, Adam. Thanks for having me. Glad to be here. Looking forward to chatting.
And I love when the intro timing aligns with the sound bed, the music bed. It rarely happens. Then I got to replay it from the beginning. And
I bring that energy.
We try. We're having a funny chat about the Pelotons and how for me it sits in my bedroom as a coat hanger, something for me to stub my toe on. But for Tom, he's gotten back into it and putting a little chirping in my ear to get my fat ass back on the bike. So hopefully,
there you go. Subtle advertising. Yeah.
Subtle. And listen, Peloton, if you're looking for a good story here of getting a fat ass back on the bike after it's been dormant for a while, we could certainly have that conversation, but that's not now. So, Tom, I love when I creative advertising is at my roots. Going back to our conversation offline a couple of weeks ago, how did it all start for you? Let's hit the rewind button. Were your parents creative types, entrepreneurs? What did they do for a living?
Yeah, so my mom and dad were not creatives, but my dad was an entrepreneur. And the funny thing is, I didn't really realize that until I became one. Meaning that my dad was an electrical contractor. I mean, he was an electrician. He was a
small business owner. Yeah.
But he owned his own business. Yeah, he wasn't he wasn't just a guy on a crew. He ran his own business, and it's crazy, man. It really wasn't until I was in my 30s and North Street was underway that I really started to have conversations with my dad, who's now passed away. So it was actually it was really great to have this time with him, where it was you have the same problems I have. I'm running a branding agency in New York. You're running an electrical contracting business in Fall River, Mass. Right. And you have the same problems with getting clients, badly behaved clients, badly behaved employees, finding employees, and so it was just this really interesting moment. And my brother and sister they have, my sister's a teacher and my brother works for the LA school system. So they went and they just didn't go the entrepreneurial route. So it was this interesting thing that we shared. And my mom was a stay-at-home mom for a good chunk of my life, but then she got into retail, working at the Gap, and then actually opened her own store, which has been open for 30 years. So she's an entrepreneur as well.
I love that too. And there's so many synergies here. My parents and my brother are all educators. My parents in New York City Board of Ed for 30 years. My brother's in the education system out here in Long Island, and I'm the black sheep who went into advertising and marketing. But so fascinating. So when you had that revelation of talking to your dad about those problems, did he already knew that you were it was in the blood and it was your revelation, or did he have a revelation as well too during those conversations, that alignment?
Yeah, we realized that. It's funny. I don't think I ever really sat down and said Dad, we're a lot more similar than I think I thought we were. And now I wish I had said that.
Don McLean song, right?
Yeah. Yeah, but it was just one of those things. My dad, he never wanted entrepreneurial. He never encouraged an entrepreneurial spirit in me. Honestly, it was funny. He didn't want my brother and I to take over his business. He was we would be on job sites working for my dad, and he'd be like, we'd run into other guys like, the old man, you're going to take over his business? And we'd be like, he won't let us. He wants us to go out. Yeah.
Well, I mean, when you were younger, I mean, were you working like even like, did you tag along on jobs? Like, did you ever feel like
all the time?
Yeah.
All the time.
I mean, you do your own electric in your house now?
I do.
Yeah.
I do. I can, because it's like I learned. I'll tell you a funny story though.
Please. Very
quick. My brother and I are both colorblind, which is funny.
Well, that's a problem with electric and creative, but we're going to get into that. That's an interesting one.
We'll get into that is, but I will tell you, one summer, my brother and I worked for my dad, and we did data wiring.
And your dad's not colorblind, right?
My dad's not colorblind, but my uncle is. And if you're doing data wiring, I mean, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but like you basically split it open. There's these like pairs of wires that have to they're color matched. And at the end of like the first week, my dad did some testing, and my brother's like 50% of our terminations just didn't work because we'd messed them up with the colors. But yeah, anyway, I worked for my dad for a while, on and off for many years, and then ended up working for my uncle, who was in a different trade after that.
Well, interesting about the color blindness, because I feel like how did you get over that when you're working with your dad on electric, and how did that help you for where you are now in the creative space? Are you fully are you fully colorblind, like just black and white?
No,
certain colors.
It's like it's hard to describe to people who don't. You know what it is? It's like this is like blues and purples and reds. All right, blues and purples can look the same to me. Reds and greens and browns can look the same to me. So it's like I have a trouble seeing like differentiation. So when I was little, if you threw like a red ball into green grass, like I'd step on it before I saw it, kind of thing. But I'm not seeing black and white. I see colors. I just don't see them how everyone else sees them. So I realized this when I was little, and I didn't really think much about it. You know, my brother and I we got eye color tests. We were both colorblind. It was just kind of this thing. And then I never really thought about it. And so when I was getting into design, I just looked at it as like a small kind of thing that I had to figure out shortcuts around. And that's basically what I think colorblind people do. They sort of like, they make guesses at things. But they also know some truths to be like 100%. Like I know this color because I'm using my swatch in Photoshop. I can get the number of this color. Yes, I can get the number. Or having to guess with my eyes, like I could just be like, I know I want this number. And then the other thing that I would do, and then my design style obviously became like very sort of like white. It was very minimalist, but with like a pop color, right? Because I would only want to choose one color. Because I'd be like, all right, it's going to be like black and white and gray, and then like a cool blue.
It's so fascinating too. And like, not to get, and now I'm just curious too. Is it hereditary? You said your uncle had it too, so did it skip?
It's hereditary.
So it comes out in the genetics, right? If you're looking at a DNA chain, not dominant and non.
Yeah, and what's also interesting is women can carry the gene, but don't actually. I'm not sure if it's 100%, but most women who carry the gene don't experience color. So
is your mom's brother?
No, it's my dad's brother.
Huh. Fascinating.
Yeah.
So how does the electrician in training or potential apprentice get into the ad world? Where did that creative spark come from? Pun intended.
That was college. That was college in the 90s. Okay, so I got to Fordham University.
That was
in
fun,
the Bronx.
man. College in the 90s.
Yeah, dude.
I don't think kids realize how much fun we had in the 90s. We just got this thing called the internet.
Dude,
we just got this thing called MySpace.
I got my first email address at college, and I had to go to a lab to check it.
In fact, that's so true. I remember it was like I went to University of Buffalo. Like, let's just have a little time capsule for a moment. I remember it was really hard to log in and get an email address, and
Dude,
no one else
was like Unix. It was Unix commands. You had to like know commands,
and nobody was sending you email. Like you weren't getting emails yet, right? Like, oh my god, we are so freaking old. Kids don't even know the struggle.
I also went, I mean, I had a computer in my dorm room that wasn't hooked up to the internet. Okay. How about that? And like, nothing existed in terms of social media. So I spoke to a kid. I mean, we're on a tangent now, but I spoke to a kid who went to.
That's what makes the show fun.
All right. I went to a kid who I ended up hiring him as my intern, and now he's actually like an executive at Ziff Davis, which is amazing.
Yeah.
But I hired this kid from Fordham who, sorry, I lost my train of thought when I just was talking
kid from Fordham started as an intern.
Yeah, but what was I was talking about color
internet.
Oh, internet. So he went to Fordham where I went 4 years after me. And
Mm.
in those 4 years, it was like you go and meet a girl out at the bar, and then you go and you look her up on Friendster, and then
Yes.
you're talking all week. And then the next time you see her, I'm like, dude, that wasn't the case for us.
No.
We had the literal printed freshman Facebook, which
Yeah.
Facebook was named after. And then like you just saw the person on campus.
Oh man, it was an evolution, and we're gonna get into that too because I think that really kind of plays into this world of creative. So you're at Fordham.
Well, yeah.
Go down the
So I'm at
creative
Fordham.
path.
Yep. So I'm at Fordham. I'm a history major because I am deeply interested in history, American history specifically. I still love it. My favorite podcast is a history podcast.
After the
but
podcast, yeah. Mm-hmm.
The second favorite.
Yeah.
I was a history major, just doing that, and then my junior year I had to take an elective, and it was called Intro to HTML. It was offered by the communications department, not the comp sci department, because at that time the computer science students were all learning like hardcore, like machine programming, right? And like, and there's this like new thing, the web, which there were no classes for it, but this elective popped up and I took it, and I'm talking, this is like 90, 98 probably. I take this class and I'm just like, my mind was blown. It literally was like, it's really hard for people to understand this of a certain age, but since we just went through the time capsule, you'll get this. So I created a website on my dorm room computer without internet, right? Was using Notepad to like develop it locally. I went to the library and uploaded it to a server. And then I went to my work computer and I looked and I could call it up on a totally different computer. And I was like, dude, this is going to change the world. I was like, I got to do this. I'm like, I don't know what this is, like where this is going, but like, I'm doing this. And so that was it, dude. I ended up becoming I was a history minor because I had enough classes, but I went and just took every creative class, like digital creative class I could possibly take.
But that's kind of like the aha moment when you recognize something. I mean, you're like Lewis and Clark out there, right? Like you discovered something, and having that kind of, and I have friends that did that too. That some of them have done really well, and they're literally pioneers in the marketing space. Right place, right time. But then there was the other part which you had to do was the creative and the storytelling. When did that come into play? When you started to put the pieces together, you have internet, you have creative, and you have storytelling. So you have the tech and the creative. When did that all start to come together for you?
Yeah, so I came out of college. The nice thing about coming out of college in 2000 was that it was right before the internet bubble burst, and I had technical skills. I could code HTML and JavaScript. So I came out and I got a job right away. But then it burst almost immediately, right? Like 6 months in, my job doesn't exist anymore. And I wound up in a magazine called FHM Magazine.
Yeah.
It was contemporary to Maxim and stuff. And they were called Lad Mags back in the day.
Dating ourselves, right? We're talking about Maxim. Dude, and
geez. I know. Well, that was what was in college dorm rooms because there was no internet, right?
Right. I mean, we had magazines for things. We'll leave it at that.
Yes. So I found myself at this magazine doing web design and development. I mean, I was like the lead developer and designer, but it was hilarious because the magazine was like, it was updated. We updated the website twice a month with the content from the website and sold subscriptions. That's all we did. So I'm a full-time employee, bored out of my mind. And I start making friends with the guys on the magazine side, and they start saying like, hey man, you're into video games and you seem to like be a funny guy, like you want to like
write. Cool.
You want to write the video game column for the magazine, which at the time was like one page, and I was like, hell yeah! So started writing video game. The
Were
video
you a
game
gamer,
reviews.
or you just kind of had to fall into it? Like no?
I mean, I was like, I wasn't a hardcore gamer, but I'll tell you what, the side benefit of that job was I got every single console that came out when it came out, and then every game that came out when it came out.
You just got shipped everything.
They were just shipped to me.
I
became a gamer.
And you probably your friends are probably just coming over and hanging out, and you had them in the office. I bet you had everything. You had the whole setup.
It was great, and so that was the beginning of my writing career.
You mean to tell me that I'm getting paid to play video games, and you're sending me all this stuff too? Seems
it was radical. I was
in your early 20s. Yeah,
I was in my 20s.
Up all night. Yeah.
It was the greatest job.
Yeah.
It was the greatest job, and that's where I became a writer. I mean, I was like, I eventually quit my job on the website, got hired at the magazine, and then became the senior editor there after like 5 years. And, I was interviewing celebrities. I was doing like feature stories and stuff like that. So I honed my writing career in my time there. And then that magazine shut down. And then I faced the sort of like, what do I do next dilemma.
Talk about that dilemma. How old were you?
Let's see. It was
Roughly.
06. I was not even 30. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
I wasn't even 30.
It's a time of your life where you're like, okay, well, I put in a couple of years. I'm out enough time outside of school. I got some life experience under my belt. I got some work experience. Maybe I got a buck or two in my pocket. But hey, the world's your oyster at that point. It's not like now with, you know, bigger bills, bigger commitments, people that rely on you. So you're able to take a bigger risk. So where was your head at that point? How'd it go?
Yeah, so I'm one of those entrepreneurs that never really meant to be one and didn't put together a business plan and didn't set up, didn't intend to set up a business, right? That's about what, 90% of us?
Yeah.
And so I started as a freelancer. I was out of a job. I was freelance writing, but I was also able to do like logos and websites for people because I retrained myself on how to do that. So I did that for a few years, honestly. I did that. I probably bounced around for about 2 or 3 years doing like freelance writing, freelance website design and development. And then in 2010, something just happened where I met another designer who was really good at print. I was not a print designer. She was good at print and branding. And we decided to just start working together. And then at the same time, a friend got a job at like this agency, this PR agency that just needs what we do. And he brought us along and we just became like their kind of go-to shop at the very beginning. And that's how we became a company, I'd say, just off of this like anchor client. And that client is still a client today. I mean, we're 15 years in now. But that was really, that was the beginning. Yeah.
What's looking back 15 years, what's the secret to retaining that client? What's that? I mean, 15 years is incredible.
Look, man, it's communication and customer experience. It's not the end product. I think my website has a beautiful portfolio, but so do 1,000 million other
so what's
design
that differentiator,
agencies.
right? Like people always look like, how do you not become a commodity? How do you not just be looked at as a vendor and really be valued as a partner? Like, look at this client, 15 years. Why do they value you as a partner?
It's because we listen to them and well, first of all, now at this point we're embedded, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we know them like they know themselves,
you're
right?
Part of the team.
We're part of the team. I mean, work doesn't even come in with like, it's not even like, can you guys scope this out? Or like, can you bid this out? It's like, here it is, because we're just so embedded with them. But really, I have found that it's listening to a client and just realizing that like what they're asking you for may not be the execution may not be what they're telling you, right? Like they've got an idea, they've got a problem or whatever, and they can sometimes come to you with like, well, we want this. And I think the ability to just peel back and be like, listen, we might not even be a fit for you, right? Like I might like, let's just pull back and like, but like, let's just talk honestly. And I might not be a fit for you. I might be. And if I am, great. But if not, I will happily put you in touch with someone else who is.
And that honesty, I mean, I've had so many of those conversations with clients like, look, like, oh, could you help us recruit on this job that's a zillion % outside of your wheelhouse? Dude, between you and I, of course I could try to do it, but am I your best bet for that? No, I'm not going to half-ass it. I'll full-ass it, but I am not your best resource because there's somebody who's a specialist in this. And a client will value that so much more. And
Absolutely.
A client that values you saying no and telling them why, they don't want a yes partner, vendor. They want someone who's going to push back. A good client. A good client.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There is nothing worse than doing something out of your wheelhouse and pretending you can.
Yeah.
Because
painful.
It's just the unknowns, man. It's the unknown. Like, what don't you know?
Well, there's a balance too, right? Let's be careful here. There's a balance of pushing yourself as a business or creatively where it makes sense within your boundaries, and then there's somewhere it just doesn't make sense.
100%.
Like no one's coming. Like if a client comes to me and said, "Hey, Adam, we have a head of finance role. We have an internal accountant auditor role." I'm going to be like, "I'm not your guy for that." Why? Because I am not an expert in that domain. I can't interview. Sure, could I source and find a pool of candidates? I could get you halfway, but I'm not the right person to bring it home for you. And a good client will appreciate that and give you more business in the long term.
And for us, it's the same thing. We might be like, well, we don't necessarily work with large multinational banks. In fact, I don't even have a single one in my portfolio, but I'll tell them like, listen, this is the work that we've done. the process is the process. Obviously, there's going to be some things we need to learn, but that's part of our discovery process. But if that's not right
When
for you and you want someone who all they do is multinational bank websites, like I get it. Go for it.
when was it when you realized, hey, this is kind of a real thing we got going here? We got a business, and I feel like this is what I'm doing now. I'm building an agency. Like when did that click for you?
It was okay. I remember it. It was when we were first working. I started my company before WeWork existed. So we were at that point we were in a co-working space that was like a big open room. It was a no name. I mean, it was called Hive at 55. It was a downtown New York City like economic development program. So they had like a co-working space. And my partner at the time, I don't have a partner anymore, but she was my partner at the time, and she was the one who was doing all the books. I did nothing. Like I just did all I did was creative and dev and project management. She did all the like
Business
she
stuff.
did some creative for sure, but she also did all of the business stuff. Um, and so I remember when she said that we could move from this big room into a WeWork and get our own room with glass sliding doors and
You mean like
six
an
tables.
office?
An office. I was like, are you serious? Like, we don't have to lock up our laptops at night and have our screens like, in a locker. I was like, that's amazing. We can hang stuff up and like
Hmm.
have our own seats. And it was like, that was a moment where I was like, wow, we can float this. And then
Was it named by
the moment,
them? Yeah. Sorry. Continue.
what's,
With the company,
well, we were,
was the agent? No, your agency. Did you
oh,
name
we
it?
were, yeah,
Yeah.
we were named. And then the second, but then the real one was when I signed a 5-year lease. When I signed a 5-year
Yeah.
lease for an office space in New York City, I was like,
It's
whoa,
real.
like this is a real
So
business.
it's a lot of money. Like shit. Now we got to deliver. It's so interesting
Yes.
too. I think the weird one for me was when I had to get E&O insurance. When I had to get
Yes.
and it was kind of cool. I remember getting my first LLC for NHP over here, and I remember that was kind of a cool moment for me. Like
Yep.
they give it to you like printed, like your LLC, and I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
I
And
have
did
a
you get
company.
did you get the big book? Like that's cool stuff too. You get the big book of checks and like your
Oh yeah,
stock
yeah.
certificates.
I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
I have like a business account now. I was able to get more credit cards, which was geez, that's a whole other story. So you're starting to build this company. They always say like those first hires are the most critical, but creative world is a little bit different, right? Because there's a lot of freelancers involved where
Mhm.
you can scale up and scale down.
Yep.
But
Yep.
like, did you
Yep.
have thoughts early on when you were like building, like, here's the type of people I want to hire. Here's a vision I have for this agency. Or you're just kind of building the airplane as you flew it.
Building the airplane as we flew it for sure. And I'll say like the game changing hire for us was a project manager.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so that was very hard for me at the time to like wrap my head around paying for, right? Because
Like a salary.
yeah, well,
And
like
but even the work, someone to do that work that you were doing historically.
but it's also like to me as a person who has a background as a developer and a designer, it's like there is material output at the end of the day, right?
Mm.
Like if I spend 4 or 8 hours on something, there's material output that goes to a client. For me, I couldn't I'm like, how am I going to charge hours for project management? It's nothing. It's just answering emails. And it's
The
like,
work.
no, by the way, it's not. It's way more than that. And it was so hard for me to make that hire. And when I did, my business, me in my business and how I show up for my business changed almost instantly. Because it was like, oh my God. I remember the day, Adam, I walked into my office in the South Street Seaport, New York, and there was a meeting happening in the conference room with my team and some clients on Zoom. And I didn't even know what the meeting was. And I
Huh.
wasn't in it. And I was like, damn, like this is a company. This feels good.
Right. Once you could, right. And I've had this conversation with founders, and that's a whole other topic. I think people are now completely lost with the fact everyone thinks it's cool to be a founder. And like they slap a, like, are you a small business owner? Are you calling yourself a CEO? Are you a founder? Whatever it is.
Right.
But once the true sign of really growth is when you could scale your company where you could step out of the day to day and focus on growing the business and have people that you trust and rely on that you've hired to do the job you hired them for and be able to, do things the right way and then communicate up to you and communicate to the client and keep everyone in tune. Once you see that, but was it hard for you to give up that trust? Not so much trust, control. Was it control or trust?
Oh, yeah.
Where did you feel that dynamic was being pulled?
It's wanting to give people as much autonomy as you can but also give them guardrails, but also be able to tell them when like, nah, what you just did wasn't cool. So, it's just, I didn't, of course I micromanaged it first, but then it's just, you have to kind of slowly release,
Hmm.
you have to slowly release. And, I think feedback loops are really important. Like, if someone does something that you don't like, don't hold on to it. And when I say don't like, it could be the punctuation in an email, like,
Right.
like address it right away. Cause it's not a big deal. It's just like, oh, hey, by the way,
Radical
I like
candor.
Oxford. Yeah, I like Oxford commas.
Yeah,
Like, by the way,
don't you M-dash me. I will knock you out. This episode of the podcast, live from ERE 2024 in Anaheim, is brought to you by Juicebox.ai. Recruiting just got smarter with Juicebox, the company behind People GPT. With AI sourcing powered by generative AI, you simply tell People GPT who you are looking for in a natural language. Need a senior data scientist with healthcare experience? Done. Looking for a creative marketing manager based out of Austin? Easy. People GPT instantly creates a search and evaluates profiles, saving you hours of time and effort. Already trusted by over 500 companies and agencies, from boutique recruiting firms to Fortune 500 TA teams, People GPT is revolutionizing the way to find talent. Ready to level up your sourcing game? Use code POZ20, that's POZ20, for an exclusive 20% discount. Juicebox, where hiring meets the future. Start sourcing smarter today. Visit juicebox.ai. Thanks. Right, but
you're safe.
But it's another interesting one too, and I go back to my story a bit, and it was so crazy to hear Gary Vaynerchuk say to me how hard it was for him to give me, at the time 10 years ago, radical candor feedback. It was like a learning lesson for him. Someone you think is like this big executive, but he wasn't good at it then. And there was a whole story like how he couldn't deliver news to me in a certain way because he wasn't there yet in his journey of being a leader, and grew into it and scaling an organization. Because it's a hard thing to do, to be honest with somebody, because you don't want to hurt their, not that it's hard to be honest, but it's hard because you don't want to hurt their feelings. But part about being a business owner and being mindful, mind the business, is to be able to give people feedback, because that's the bottom line.
Absolutely. And like, and how else are they going to learn? And like, otherwise things become elephants in the room, and then the person never learns. And then they're wondering why they never were given the opportunity to learn. And then you're like, well, you're not meeting my expectations. And they're like, well, you never told me what my expectations were, like, yeah. 100%. So like, I totally agree. And like, so anyway, that's how I got out of like micromanaging. It was just like, it was bit by bit, but also like, constant kind of like reminders, like, hey, by the way, like, these are the things that we need to like, these are the things that we need to pay attention to. These are the things I need you to prioritize.
Oh man, it's so crazy. So your agency North Street. First of all, what's it named after? Seems obvious, but is it?
No, it's totally made up. I mean, the story that the story that I sometimes told people back in the beginning was
the origin story.
Yeah, I was like, well, we were located in Lower Manhattan, which is like, these like brick streets and that wind all around. And I was like, well, it's sort of this fictional street in Lower Manhattan around the turn of the century New York, when, handmade artisanal goods were made in small factories.
You definitely said bespoke a few times in there.
Oh, bro, bespoke. Yeah. I threw that around in the early days. Like, it was definitely on our website. It was definitely. You can go through. You can go through
in your word web,
dude. No, I didn't. I did not have the word cloud.
Word cloud, yes, thank you. Word cloud. You know what's funny? I sometimes see people rock a word cloud now these days, and I'm like, dude,
Bold
you
choice.
Are you being retro on purpose, or did someone like give you that? So let's hit that time machine button. And it's crazy. We're going back, like my first job out of school, I went right into advertising. We're talking 2002. You were working at the magazine at the time too, and so much technology has changed in 25 years. We're now those old dudes that we used to look at in the companies and the corporate, be like, oh man, there's a guy who's got married, got a couple of kids, like, he still kind of looks and acts cool. He'll come out with us for drinks afterwards, but then he's got to leave. Yeah. He's got to go leave to take care of the kids. He's still dressing like a skater from 99. Like, what is he doing over there? Right.
And also his LinkedIn headshot is from like 20, 30 years ago.
Right. But we've seen, dude, you should update that headshot, man. That suit's looking a little boxy. But like, you look back and like, you look at technology, and obviously we know, because we are tech forward, creative folks, but it evolves and things change, and you need to change with it. Some of the good, the bad, and the ugly. I'm all for the modernization from utility, from tools and everything, but are we losing touch with true creativity with AI, or is it enabling us to go deeper? What are your thoughts?
I think it's going to allow us to go deeper, but I think the real win is efficiency. Um, I actually had a conversation with someone earlier today about the threat that AI poses to like branding and creative agencies, and sort of my perspective is this: like they are amazing tools. They are amazing tools that are capable of amazing things, and they're always changing and they are evolving very quickly, like by the week. Like the capabilities of these, especially on the image rendering side, is just like it's like every week there's an update. Um, but it but those tools are only as good as like the professional hands that they're in,
right?
right? And so my answer is, yeah, like look, there's you could Google how to make a logo, you could Google how to make a website, then you can go to Squarespace and you can do it yourself. Is it going to be any good? Probably not. The change that AI brings in is it will make it faster and maybe marginally better, but not. But the fact is, since there's no oversight from anyone who has any professional experience in, say, marketing, branding, website design, and development, it can only it's going to hit a ceiling very fast in terms of how good it is. Period.
Well, I mean, but also the exponential rate, the rate of improvement and growth with any technology is getting so much faster, and there's all these new tools coming out there. And I think that we have to evolve as creatives of how do we use these tools. I truly think there'll always be a place for the creative mind. Maybe our brushes change, right? We've evolved from painting logos and taking photos to scanning them into computers to CGI to where we are now. But it still takes that creative mindset to input it. So the creative mind who's inputting it into the system, who's the prompt engineer. I mean, I see the job is real.
That's what it is.
That's real.
That's what it is.
I see the job as a creative
learning,
prompt engineer.
Yep.
CP?
Adam, I'll just tell you, I don't think we're that far away, like from, say, me and you on this call building a brand for you. Like with me prompting, me as the expert, knowing the prompts, having fed our own kind of homegrown AI, like our house style and like all of that. I think that I could spend 4 hours with you and like probably create a brand with like a landing page that actually is deployed. We're not there yet, but like that's the future. I think is like what I'm saying is like we're still going to be we're going to be the creative agency that's doing these things, but we're going to be doing them differently and we're going to be charging differently for them. And that's a big question. Right.
And there's always going to be there's always going to be the range, right? You're always going to have the, Instagram ads that say, hey, get your quick logo maker in 1 minute for $99 for your new business or brand. And then the high-end agency using, quote unquote, the same tools. It's just a different level of thought and process that goes into it. So there's always going to be that.
Yeah. Also, like, I mean, I'm looking at AI from like talk about like, inspiration, right? Like if my designers are looking for logo inspiration, like a logo generator at this point is just going to kick out the end result.
Correct.
Right. But like a designer using something to create mood boards and then like sort of like even rough drafts of logos and then taking that work and then manually, humanly adapting it into the final product, I think that's where we're at now.
It's so interesting too. What I like to use it for, the same thing you're saying is inspiration. For example, I got an email from a mentor, somebody that I went to college with who was a few years older, brought me into the fraternity, befriended me, was just that like a older brother, but really from an inspirational. And then I followed him when he went on, and he wrote me a note the other day right after New Year, and he's watching. People have to realize there's people that are watching you all the time. They may not be commenting on your stuff or everything, but they're watching because they care, because they've been following you. They're friends. And he's like, hey, dude, everything okay? He's like, you lead with empathy. You care. You're always adding value. But I've seen a couple of posts from you lately that are kind of like something's wrong, or you're kind of looking at what other people are doing and criticizing them, the good, the bad, and the ugly. He's like, are you okay? He's like, you have so much more to give. Stop focusing on that nonsense and focus on you and your brand and who you are, and not worry about that. And it really hit home for me. And I sat on it for a little bit. And, the other day I was kind of having a moment of like, let me set some creative up for the week. And I took that email with a few prompts and thoughts, and I put it into my version of ChatGPT that has all my brand and all my posts and all my content. And I prompted it, and it gave me a nice outline of a post that I wanted to create. And then I went in and I fine-tuned that. So I use it as a medium.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's how I use it. I don't use it as gospel.
Also, like, I mean, have you messed around at all with Perplexity? I think it's
Yep.
called. That's the one
Hmm.
that's like research heavy, right? Like you can like it's like
Yeah, it's a little bit different.
it actually cites its sources, which is really helpful, and the sources are real.
Well, that is
Um,
important.
but I mean, it's an interesting.
So,
So it's about using different tools, right? Like I'd use Perplexity to like probably go out and get some data, package that into some like some recommendations. Then I'd use probably ChatGPT maybe to create like a site architecture, but then I'd be using something like Midjourney to create mood
mhm.
boards, right? And so it's like, yeah, sure, Joe Q Public, like go for it. You totally can.
The output won't be. The output will not be. The output will
It's
not be
yeah.
is even include. What's keeping you up at night these days with technology? What's scaring you?
Oh wow, good question. I think that I'm really excited about AI, as I think you can tell, but I'm also very fearful of it. And my fear isn't really with having to do with my business. It has more to do with like I'm just concerned that the internet is being quickly filled up with machine generated garbage. It's not real. It's not even real people talking to each other. It's like it's bots talking to bots. And then you've got this sort of AI generated content that is learning off of humans. And so, like, if humans stop producing original content and then it's just machines regurgitating stuff that machines have created, it's just going to get really messy really fast. And it's going to be hard to tell the difference between,
Hmm.
well, I don't know. It's just going to be one of those things. I mean,
Well,
I'm already in that space now where I'm on the internet or I get a phone call and I'm like, is this AI? Is this real?
yeah. No, it's. I mean, deepfakes are a real thing, and it's getting really good
Yeah.
really quick. That's a problem. Even if you go
Yeah.
back a year ago, for most people with half a brain and a little bit of common sense, you could decipher something machine AI generated.
Yep.
I have seen stuff that is like I am at the mid to higher range compared to the average Joe because of what we do and what we
Yeah.
know. And I've seen stuff that you couldn't even tell the difference, right? And I'm talking images too. I'm thinking
Yeah.
deep fakes, pornography, what they could do with celebrities, like
Oh, I
and
mean,
the movie
dude,
stuff too, like the movie
yeah.
stuff too. Like they could churn out a movie pretty much without even filming. Like they could have all the stock content of an actor. They could film an actor saying they could spend 2 days and have an actor say every single word in the English vernacular, whatever, different movements and everything, and it's getting pretty damn good. Where they could just create
Well,
a movie with prompts.
actors are now able to license their
Of course,
like
likeness.
AI being, right? Like, so they'll be making their estate will make money forever.
It's great.
It's actually insane.
It's actually pretty cool. Let's I mean, we could talk for days on that, right?
Yes.
About AI,
Yes.
and it's so funny too. Like you see, all like the post recap from CES, like all the technology, and I love when it goes down like the sex bots, right? And like they have the people that are doing like the spoofs on the sex bots. It's actually
Yes.
it's actually
Yes.
pretty
Yes.
funny. I mean, there's some wild stuff at CES.
I got to tell you, Adam, I saw sex bot made me think of it, but it wasn't a sex bot. There was this humanoid robot, right? Like that looked like a woman. It was kind of just like her neck and head,
Right.
but she was making like fully articulated like face gestures, like it was a
Eye
human.
tracking. Hmm.
So dude, combine that with like a language model that can like talk to you, and it's like
That's where we're at. And that's where this bot was, and it was just like it was so real, and I'm like, this is creeped, where and there's like those outlier stories now of people that are like falling in love with bots, and where
yeah,
the outlier
yeah,
becomes it's so funny. I'm a huge Howard Stern fan. I'm listening this morning to Howard, and they were talking about like flat earthers, right? And it used to be before the internet because they were talking about Mel Gibson. This was funny. They were talking about Mel Gibson on Joe Rogan. They were like breaking down that appearance from like last week. And how crazy he is. Like, how does this guy who wrote Braveheart and directed and starred it, and all of a sudden this guy is off his fucking rock or this crazy.
Is he a flat earther? I didn't know
I don't know if he's a
that.
flat earther, but that's where they were going with that. And they were kind of saying, all right, well, maybe 20, 25 years ago, we had these people that, believed that up after the horizon, you're just going to fall right off, right? Because you can't see beyond it, right? That's the end of the earth, flat. No, you're falling off. And there were outliers. But now, because of the internet, there's a home for them all, and they all kind of come together. And that's what scares me, right? All these radical outside thinkers, and there's good outside thinking outside the box, and then there's some just fucked up idiots, right? That are just so over the top.
Yeah.
Like, that's what scares me. And then you put
But
the
also,
AI on top of that to amplify it and spread bad shit.
That's what I was just going to say is it's the amplification. It's the AI amplification of AI generated content for bad purposes, right? Like swaying public opinion, right? Or like, I saw a picture of the Hollywood sign on fire and
I
everyone's
thought it
like,
was real
oh
for a
my
second.
God. I know.
For a quick second, because you also look at the timing, like that looks kind of real.
Well, we also think about it, Adam. Kids, like my kids, won't even blink. Like they won't have to think about it. They like for now we're so old school that we look at an image and I think instantly we believe it's real. I look at an image and you're instantly like, oh, that's real, and then you look at it and you're like, wait, no, it's not. She's got six fingers.
Are we losing critical thinking?
I think that critical thinking has been an endangered species for a while, actually, with the just with the internet and the shrinking of attentions. You know what I mean? I found it. I'm 46. I find it very hard for me to like sit down distraction free and like really just, I don't know, do whatever. Think about, just think about the future. Think about my life, the future of my business, because I'm getting bombarded by notifications, but then every time I open up my phone for a notification, I get sidetracked and suddenly I'm buried in my emails. And it's like, so yeah, I think critical thinking is something that you need to work at. And I think that if you don't know you need to work on it, you're going to lose it or never have it.
Yeah, man, listen, it's interesting. We're the same age. I'm turning 36 in a month, probably when this podcast comes out. 46. Jeez, I wish I was 36.
I was gonna say, whoa, dude, congrats.
No, and like it's a weird point in life where you're like, wow, that went quick, right? Like that went quick, and we're at a different point with kids and life and like what's important to us and priorities. But you said something that made me think for a minute. I can't remember the last time I do know. I'm so caught up all day long with this fucking thing or the computer in front of me that the only free time that I have to think is when I put my head down on the pillow, and that's what keeps me from sleeping, because that's my distraction-free zone. I need time for that during the day. I need to find those moments, and I think we all really need to find those moments to put the device down and reconnect with ourselves and reconnect with things that are not electronic.
Yeah, you know what's a really good way to do that, actually, and I've been doing this, is not picking up my phone first thing in the morning. Like, dude, have a morning to yourself. You know, it's early, no one's working yet. Like, exercise, meditate. But I just, dude, I don't look at this thing and probably until like I get up at 6. I don't look at this probably until like 8:30.
That is a pro move. The other pro move is to physically put it not next to your bed. Like when at night, when you need to charge your phone, but charge it on your desk over there or in the kitchen. Yeah. I mean, obviously, like, oh, what if there's an emergency? You don't need it within arm's length. And I'm guilty of it. And I said to my wife once, I'm like, it was a weekend morning. We didn't even have to get out of bed yet. The first thing we did when we woke up, instead of like hugging each other, was grab our phones. I'm like, that's a problem. And so let's really make it a point not to do this. Let's bring it home here. Yeah. But before I do, you have your agency for 15 years, and congrats on that, especially in this economy and everything changing. And you hire people. Listen, by the time someone gets to you in the interview process, they have the hard skills, they have hopefully the portfolio and the experience to check that. But how do you assess like values and character? How do you assess if that person is going to be an add to your agency and they're going to be a good person? Like, what's that line of questioning? How do you get there?
There is a line of questioning, but it's also, a lot of it is also just like chemistry, right? So I'd say
how do you do that without bias, right? How do you do that without bias?
Sure. So we've got our core values. We run the entrepreneurial operating system, EOS, at North Street, which just is like there's a way for you to put your core values together and really celebrate them and integrate them into the culture. So we do that, and that is part of our hiring process, is assessing the person to see if their core values match, and that's been really, and designing questions in the interview around that, right? We also, these are going to sound like opposing initiatives or practices, but we do them both. So one is, we actually have a conversation. It's funny. We have a conversation, me and my COO or whoever's going to be working with this person, we'll have a conversation about what we want this person to do and how we want them to act with clients and with the team. Then we'll record that and we'll send it to one of my business coach, who will tell us what disc profile that fits. And then we'll do like a disc assessment on the person. But at the same time, I will say, when we interview people, we keep it very wide, because it is people. It's not necessarily your hard skills and your experience. It is the number one factor is, are you a good person? Like, are you a people person? I mean, you don't have to be a people person.
Right.
It's like, but like, are you a good person? Are you matching with our core values, which are the things that we deem important? If I throw a scenario at you, are you answering it the way that's in line with like how we think? And so that's how we're doing it. And honestly, we just hired somebody who started Monday, and I'm really excited because everything, all indicators through like the interviewing process this is going to be a game changer for us. So I'm psyched.
That's what you want to feel. You want to feel someone is just adding even if they're replacing somebody, right? That I'm a baseball guy. I like to use this WAR metric, wins over replacement. And I think that's a metric that should be built into business. Is the person that we're hiring to replace somebody, whether they quit, got let go, fired, whatever, are they better? And whatever metrics you could use to analyze that, are we making a better hire? Are they adding to the culture? Are they adding to the product? Are they adding to the bottom line? Whatever those metrics are we hiring someone better? We always kind of up in our game there. So let's go for it.
I was just going to say, like, also, like, they bring something different too, right? Like
mindset,
different experiences, different mindset, different approaches. And so like, I feel like every time we've replaced a role, like we've evolved because we've just like, it's built on what's been before. So I don't know.
And anybody who's listened to even 2 episodes of my show, they know I get on my soapbox when I talk about culture fit, how I think it's my cringe expression. When I hear culture fit, because when you say fit, you think everyone's going to look the same. And when I explain what my definition of diversity is, aside from the external factors,
mindset,
it's diversity of mindset. I want somebody who is going to bring a different perspective. I want someone, as long as it's within, because that's what's going to add value, especially in the creative space. Bring your life experiences, bring your world travels, the way you grew up, your family upbringing. That's going to add value, especially like you bring in a client that is different than, what's the word I'm looking for here? You might have something like a client that's coming in from a different region, a different area, and you have someone who's from that area or region. They're bringing in perspective or lifestyle. That's what adds value to it. So, Tom, let's bring it home here. What is that greatest piece of advice that you've ever received that you take action on daily? Like maybe it's a mantra, something when you wake up, something that you feel.
I mean, honestly, the greatest thing that I've done. Oh, well, I mean, my mantra is, I am an agent of change. Like my mantra for 2025 is, I'm not letting life or the market pass me by. I am an agent of change for myself and for North Street.
I dig it. And Tom, last but not least, you've had success, reached success. You've had your failures and your trials and your tribulations. But at this point of your life, how do you define success?
Success for me, and I'm not there yet. A big part of success for me is, okay, so I want to run North Street so that we are producing amazing work and producing amazing relationships with clients. I want it to be profitable enough for me to make a comfortable living off of it, but I don't need to be a billionaire. Yeah, and I think that's kind of it.
I think it's like, listen, let's do good in the world, leave the world a better place than we found it, right? Be able to take care of our family, right? Like
that's the other piece that I'm missing. I right now we do not have that, and this is important in hiring now. Actually, we do not have that like North Street gives back kind of platform, which I do think it doesn't need to be called that, but you know what I mean. Like we're not
the philanthropy side to it,
right? We haven't put a stake in the ground to say like this is the thing in the world that we're going to improve or change, because we're still trying to figure out what that is. And honestly, like it helps to have extra bucks in the coffers to do those types of things.
Exactly. Well, Tom, I want to thank you so much for joining us. I want everyone to check out northstreetcreative.com. We're going to link it up. Check out North Street's LinkedIn page. Where else could folks connect with you? Where could they learn more?
Yeah, check me out on LinkedIn. I'm Thomas Conlin. And then we're on Instagram, North Street.
Good stuff. Hang with me for a moment here. Love having these chats. I love getting into talks about the industry. It keeps me connected. This is a good one. This is fun.
Dude,
this is engaging.
I liked your style, because you were just like, yeah, let's go into that. It's like tangent. It's like, all right, let's just go into it.
The treasures are in the ship hit, man. And everyone listening out there, if you enjoyed the treasures of Tom's ship hit, please learn more at thepodcast.com. Follow us on social media. And please, I'm trying to build this damn YouTube channel. It's the hardest platform out there. Go to youtube.com/thepodcast. Hit me up on email. Please give me some feedback on this episode. I'll pass it on to Tom. Adam@nhptalentgroup.com. Remember, be good to yourself, be better to others, and catch us next week for another great episode of the podcast. Take care, everybody.
Wisdom is forever, but for us, it's time to go. Thank you for joining us. Luckily, we'll be back with our next episode soon, jam-packed with more incredible humans. Thank you for listening, subscribing, and sharing. To join the conversation, search the podcast on LinkedIn. And to catch up on past episodes and more info, please visit www.thepodcast.com.